Now, another typical use case would be the opposite, that you have an application where you want to find out whether the user is in a certain area. So you don't want to find all places in an area, but you want to store a couple of different areas potentially in the database, let's say the neighborhoods of a city, and then your user sends some coordinates because he located himself, and you want to find out in which neighborhood the user is. So essentially the same query as before, just the other way around. Now, to keep things simple, I will work with the same area, but I will now store it in the database. And I then want to find out if a user, let's say, is here, if this user is inside this area. And we'll also check this with a point outside of the area then. So let's first of all store our nice polygon, which we used here, and therefore I will just copy this GeoJSON object. Let's store this in the database. For that, I'll add a new collection, areas. Of course, you can name this however you want, where we'll insert one area, and that area will have a name of, let's say, Golden Gate Park, and then I'll add a field. I could name it Polygon, but I'll just name it area. That name is totally up to you. The value will be my GeoJSON Polygon object with the coordinates I stored before. So this added this object, and we can have a quick look into our areas to confirm that we have all the coordinates for the corners here. First and last coordinate pair have to match. Okay, nice. So we got that place in here. Now with that place added, let's find out if this user is inside of that area. Now how can we do that? First of all, we need to create an index again. So let's run db areas, create index, and then the index should be created on the area key which I added, and should be a 2D sphere index, of course. So with the index added, we can write our query. And there we want to find out basically if the user is inside of this area. We can do this by checking for geo intersects. Now what does geo intersects do? Geo within allowed us to find out which places are inside of an area. Geo intersects simply returns all areas that have a common point or a common area. Now why don't I use geo within? Because I can't find areas that are within the point where the user is. The user is just a point, and the area will never be within that point. The other way around is what I want to see, and I get this by simply checking, does this point intersect with the area? If the answer is yes, so if I do get an area returned, I know that the user is, well, in that area which is returned, because that is what I'm trying to find out, in which area is the user. So geo intersects is what I need to use there. And as before, we can now simply pass a geometry here with $geometry, which is now again a GeoJSON object. This is now just a point, the coordinates of the user. And the coordinates here are a simple array of the longitude and the latitude. So let's grab the longitude of that user here, like this. And let's grab the latitude, so this first value here. If I hit enter, I get an error because, of course, geointersects is generally all right, but the field for which I'm looking is the area field. And then this geointersects operator gets used on the area field. So my mistake. Just as before, this doesn't change. We need to let MongoDB know, hey, in which field is the data I want to compare. And that, of course, is the area field in our database, because the area field is where I do store the area I'm looking for. And then I use geointersects. So with this fixed, now we do get a place here. And that is looking good. I'm getting the only place I have in that database, but I'm getting the place with which my point intersects. And if my point would be in multiple areas, I would of course get all these areas which intersect with my point. You can also not just intersect points with areas, you could also intersect areas with areas and see if two areas touch. Let's say you want to find out which neighborhood contains the Golden Gate Park. The Golden Gate Park could be a polygon, and the neighborhood around it could be one too, and you could find out if they intersect, and if yes, which neighborhood intersects with the Golden Gate Park. Here, we just looked at a point, and now to complete this, let's also look at a point which is not inside the Golden Gate Park. So I'll add a new point outside of it here. And definitely feel free to pause the video at this point and do this on your own. I will do it together with you. Here are the coordinates. And in the end, we just have to repeat the last query. This time, add the new coordinates, so the new coordinates of this new point for the point we want to see if it intersects with the Golden Gate Park. And hit enter, and we don't get back a result. Because in our areas collection, we have no areas that would contain this point. This is the answer this gives us.